Kia ora e tiwi and welcome to The Chew.
The Chew.
Where we chew the fat off random kaupapa. Anea hou ko taika, Māui ko kori.
Kia ora.
Coming at you live from Arrowtown and streaming in from Crompton, or Tiro, known as Cromwell. Today, I know we get to catch up with Lindsay Bellamy, long-time local, who also has a unique connection to Ao Māori as well. So without further ado, I'll hand the rākau over to you, Lindsay. Kia ora and welcome.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ka pai ki kitea no kia korua.
Oh, kia ora, bro. Kia ora.
Oh, kia ora, kia ora.
Ai.
He pai te kite ia a koe I ngā wā katoa.
Tautoko.
So, bro, I'll open with the question. Can you just tell us where you were born and where you grew up?
Yeah, I was born in Naenae, which is in Lower Hutt, te whanganui a Tara, toko maha Ngā Tamariki te whanau o Bellamy, from, big family, toko whetu aku tuakana, me toko toru aku tuahini, he potiki au. So a big family, big state house growing area. And the funny story was I was actually born in the kitchen of the house that I grew up in. And I was born on the floor. And so the story goes was that when I was born, I was wrapped up in a tea towel. And Mum got up and made the ambulance guy and my father a cup of tea. I don't know if that story's actually true, but Corey, Taika, you never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So when someone asked the question, Mawai nā rihi e heroi, maku, I just love doing dishes. Anyway, so we lived there till I was about 11, then we moved up to Levin, which is at the foot of the Tararua Ranges, and from my bedroom window I could see the Tararua Ranges. And then one day when I was about 11 years old, a good friend of mine, with him and his father, we went into the Tararua Ranges for a day trip. And I come from a family that's not an outdoors family or a country family, but something clicked in my rural, and that sparked something. And from then on, I was fixated on getting up into the mountains. Before long, I end up, you get into hunting and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what started your want to go into the mountains? Like, did it just sort of come out of nowhere, or?
Well, yeah, from growing up down in Lower Hutt, which was really cityfied, and then moving up to Levin, where I was, the countryside was just like right out my back door, and I used to ride my push bike 6 kilometres to the bush edge, ditch my bike in the bushes and go off into the hills.
Cool.
And then just that combination of reading puka puka about hunting and tramping and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that just started the whole ball rolling.
Cool.
Yeah.
So your early childhood, like where you went to school, was that all in around Wellington or Naenae, was it?
Yeah, I went to Naenae Primary School, and then Naenae Intermediate, and then when we moved up to Levin, Waipihu College. School wasn't too good for me, I was just too busy arguing with the teachers, and they probably thought I was a little prat. And when I was 16, halfway through my sixth form, Mum said I could leave school.
Cool.
And on that, I left school on a Thursday, left home on a Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I had my pack, and my mother gave me some stamped envelopes and a writing pad, and I always remember she gave me a packet of tea, and that tea was Edgelet's tea, and I don't think you can get Edgelet's tea now, but she also gave me $100, which way back then, 40 odd years ago, was a lot of money. 45 years ago, whatever. And if my father knew, he probably would have done his balls,
Cool.
But my whole idea was I grew up reading books about Barry Crump. He was a bit of a hero of mine. Books about high country musterers and all that sort of stuff. And I either wanted to be a deer culler or a shepherd. And so I left home 8 o'clock in the morning, And my mother, she gave me that stuff and she said, let us know how you're getting on, son. And I had nowhere to go. I was just going to hitchhike over to the Wairarapa and see if I could get a job on a farm, which I did.
Cool.
And I'd have been on that farm about a month, and I realised that farm workers were overworked and underpaid.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And
totally.
And on my first day off, I made a beeline into town because I was working on a farm out the back of Masterton, and I walked into the local forestry office and asked for a job, and I got one. And that, by joining the Forest Service, is what brought me to Te Waipounamu.
Oh, right.
So from...
Yeah, right. So you were doing animal culling, or what were
Yeah,
you doing?
yeah. First of all, I wanted to be a deer culler, but I was way too young and had no experience, and so they put me on track cutting. And then eventually I applied for a training scheme in the Forest Service, a woodsman training scheme. It's a 3-year course, and it's down at Golden Downs Forest, just out of Whakatipu.
Oh, okay.
And so I was down there did my course for 3 years, and then that got me more into hunting. And instead of going into the pine plantation forestry, I wanted to get into the native forest, more animal control, all that sort of stuff.
Right. So was it through that work that you eventually ended up in Queenstown?
Yeah, I worked in various jobs and all around the South Island with the Forest Service, and it was a Forest Service hunting job that brought me to Tahuna.
Oh, okay.
In the autumn of 1984.
Cool.
And I always recall driving over the Lake Hayes Hill, when you see Lake Hayes and Lake Whakatipu in the different distance, and I was like, oh man, awesome.
Awesome pronunciation. You got Whakatipu for the lake here. So, Whānau, you probably noticed that Lindsay's got a little bit of te reo going on here with his kōrero, so we're gonna touch on that story a bit later on in the piece. But sorry, carry on. Yeah,
and so when I was in Tahuna here, I was working for the Forest Service, hunting, shooting goats mostly, and
when would this have been roughly?
1984.
Whoosh.
84? Yeah, 84. And a good friend of mine back in the Forest Service days, he was now working out of Ruatahuna, possuming up there, and he rung me up, said, come up to Ruatahuna to come possuming. And so I chucked my job in here, went up there to go possuming, and that was a bit of a...
That's a hearty place to go.
Oh, yeah. So in Ruatahuna...
Especially for a kitty ma fellow like yourself.
Oh, yeah, mate. and going to Ruatahuna, I recall I was only one of 7 Pākehā that lived there,
Right.
Wow. Yeah, and it's the first time I ever heard anyone speaking Māori. When I walked into the local general store and there were 2 Māori women there, and they were talking in Māori, and then you hear Pākehā, and then you hear laughing, and I thought they're talking about me. It's funny talking about my big nose, And but I was thinking,
I don't know, our noses are pretty big too. They might have been talking about something else. So.
Yeah, and I was thinking, oh, geez, one day I wish I could speak Māori so I could say how big your nono is.
You got that right. Yeah.
Oh,
crack up. So how long did you spend up there Ruatahuna?
That was only just half the winter, and then after that winter, I made my way back down south.
Oh, okay. Back to Queenstown?
Yeah. Right. I always come back to Queenstown.
Yeah.
When I was growing up as a kid, I always dreamt, had a moia, that I was going to live somewhere that had big mountains, a lake or a river valley, and that's probably why, as soon as I got to come over that hill, and saw that view, I was like, oh man, this is it.
Yeah, right.
And then I was trying to get back my job back hunting at the Forest Service, but the boss kept putting me off, and then some of the old guys that I'd worked with said, you don't want to be like us. no skills, the writing's on the wall, it's all going to come to an end, because it was coming from the Forest Service to the Department of Conservation, and eventually all those hunting jobs just went. And so they said, get out and get a trade. And by a chance meeting with this bloke who had a building company in town, I just happened to ask him, would you give someone an outdoor apprenticeship? And he said, yeah, come and see me. So I went and saw him on the Monday, and he gave me a job. And Corey, the best move I ever made was doing that apprenticeship.
So roughly when would that have been?
So this is now like 1986.
Oh God, a big 2 years since you first moved down there. So 1986. So you've been a builder since 1986.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, and it's been really good for me. And so there was a big period of time prior to coming to Queenstown where I just couldn't settle down. Apart from that 3 years being a woodsman, I'd be 6 months here, and then I'd go to another job up to Marlborough. I did a stint on the wallaby board down in South Canterbury shooting wallabies. Back here, back there, did a little bit of logging, all sorts of stuff. Cool. But I eventually got back to Queenstown,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now by this time you'd started work as a builder.
Yep.
And so what I'd like to touch on now is how you met the lovely Leonie.
Oh yes, Leonie, my wahine. Well, we had I built a house.
Yeah.
And we had a big housewarming party, and one of the guys I work with invited all the people at his work to this party, and she came along, and that's how we met at the party.
Right.
And then the following week I asked her out, and then one thing led to another, and then next thing we're a couple. I whakanui māua I tō māua marina hurito rua takau mā rua. I te rā rāmere.
I te rā rāmere?
Yeah.
Wow.
Rānei paraire, you choose. Tuawhā potu tarangi. He pai me a tāhua wahine a Leonie. Nōku te whiwhi.
I know te whiwhi.
Yeah. Ka nui aroha ki a ia. I Corey nōku te whiwhi. Nōku te whiwhi.
No te whiwhi, yes. Yeah. So hopefully I'll have all that translated down the bottom, whānau, if you wanted to follow that little conversation. But Lindsay just gave us an update about his anniversary, and when they celebrated it, and the fact that Leonie is a very beautiful woman.
Okay.
So and so you've been together for quite a while now. So your anniversary, I think you said the 22?
Yeah, 22 years married, but but we were together before that, and we had children before we got married.
And how many kids do you have?
Tukurua, Akutama, ko George, Raua, ko Tom, me e rua a Mātou Kuri, Shadow, and Stewie.
They're family members too. Aye. So, So, whānau, if you didn't catch that, so Lindsay has two sons, George and Tom. And he has two dogs that are part of the family as well. Shadow and Stewie.
Yeah, aye. Yeah.
Cool. And so so you would consider yourself to be a long-term local then?
Oh, definitely. So we moved from Queenstown to Kamuruwai, 2000, and I just he nui ngā wahi a tāhua I Aotearoa, but this place, this is like, as you would say in Māori, this is my tūranga waiwai.
Tūranga waiwai.
Yeah.
Oh well, you're lucky being non-Māori. You get to choose your tūranga waiwai.
Aye. Yeah.
We don't really get to choose it.
Yeah.
But kei te pai.
Yeah.
Right. So thanks for that. That's like I know that's the condensed version of your life. Up until this point, there's so much more detail involved in all of that.
Yeah.
But one thing I'd like to talk about now is your grandfather.
Aye. Yeah.
So without leading on too much, I'll let you do all the talking. So
Yeah.
can you just tell us a bit about your grandfather?
My grandfather on my mother's side, Godfrey Coward, he was an Irishman, and he eloped to New Zealand with my grandmother in the 1920s. He
Right.
was already a City of Guilds woodcarver, and the interesting thing here, he was an Irishman, but a lot of people think he was an Englishman because if he was an Irishman, he wasn't going to be able to get into the City of Guilds in London. So there's that whole English thing going on again.
Can you just
know.
quickly explain what that is? I have no idea.
Or City of Guilds, it's like a gilded workplace, I guess. You get these skills, but he was a woodcarver. But they call it, he was a City of Guilds of London woodcarver.
Right.
But when he came to New Zealand, he was in total awe of everything Māori, the culture, the language, obviously the whakairo.
Yeah.
And
Whakairo is the carving.
yeah,
Yep.
and so he immersed himself into it, which Corey and Taika, for that time, in the 1920s right through up to the 60s when he died, I mean, that was probably unheard of for a Pākehā man.
Yeah.
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 Now, unfortunately, Granddad died when I was a baby, but, my older brothers and sisters told me that they used to go to his studio on a Saturday morning to learn to carve, a little bit of te reo, but of course when he died that all went out the door.
Right. So he was fluent, did you say?
I can't verify that. I'd have to talk to my but I was told that was it.
Wow.
But his carvings of just, he was an incredible carver, like his taiaha, his patu, his wakahuia, the detail on them all was just really incredible. But not only that, he was an amazing artist across all art forms, painting, sculptures. He's got some incredibly fantastic Māori sculptures, all done in wood. They're just amazing. You
Wow.
know. Yeah, he was an incredibly talented man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so presumably he was taught by someone. Did you
Well,
have any idea?
As far as I know, one of my older brothers told me he taught himself
Wow.
all the different styles of Māori carving. And some of I've joined a Whakairo Facebook page, and I've put up your post, and can anyone tell me what this means? And they go, well, we can't really, because we need to find out what your grandfather was thinking in this design, so that's lost forever.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
But that's lost forever.
It'd be interesting to find out what iwi, what iwi his style came from, because it's quite well known with Whakairo Māori that a lot of the styles of carving are very specific to iwi. Yeah.
That's something I'd have to show his carvings, to someone who's knowledgeable
would know.
of
Yeah.
that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we don't have much of his work.
Yeah.
I've only got 2 pieces at home that belong to was Granddad's, and they're not very deep. They're beautiful pieces of work, but they're not like his really
The real
amazing
good
stuff.
one. Yeah.
You
do
know?
Do you have any idea how many pieces he might have
I've got
carved?
no idea.
Yeah.
I've got no idea, and it's a bit of my mission at the moment is to find out where these carvings are.
Yeah.
He did work for the National Publicity Studios, which is an arm of the government, and a lot of work, like for example, if a lot of dignitaries would come to New Zealand, they'd say, "Oh, Mr. Coward, could you carve something for, the Prime Minister of Canada or whoever it may be?"
Yeah, right.
So a lot of stuff went offshore, but it's also a lot of stuff that I don't know where it is. In one instance, my brother told me he also worked at the Dominion Museum, and my brother told me I can remember going to which now called the Papa. He said, I remember going there with Mum, walking along, and there'd be a carving, and it would say, carver unknown, and he goes, I always remember Mum saying, your granddad carved that, your granddad carved that, but I don't know. It's when all this Omicron stuff's done and dusted, I'm going up to Whanganua-Tara to find out, you know.
So did he live in Wellington? So did
yes.
he reside there for most of the time? So I suppose that's probably a good starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
That'd be a good clue.
he might have been under the tutelage of one of the rangatira down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone, God, Grandad would be well over 100. No, he'd be 120 if he was alive now, you know. No, yeah, 120 if he was alive now.
Yeah.
But I have been in touch with Archives New Zealand and Te Papa.
Mm-hmm.
I have received some files. There's many, many more, but I need to go and search myself.
Yeah.
So that's one of my missions I will be doing in the near future.
Cool.
I've just got another question. Do you know of any stories passed down to you about whether he was like accepted or thrown out or not accepted by a lot of the Māori community too? Because that's obviously a taonga to Māori people, so I can see some of our people accepting him and being really grateful, but I can also see the other side.
Yeah, the other side.
Well, my sister tells me that Grandad was she said that Grandad was a really gentle man. He spoke quietly, and he was a very caring man. I was also told that he taught young Maori carving. Now, I mean, on this Facebook page, I've put the question out there: does anybody know my grandfather? Did my grandfather teach anyone? I haven't had any answers to those patai yet. But that's something. If anyone knows anything about my grandfather, Godfrey Coward, man, I'd love to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's there's a hidden story there somewhere. There's some detail that needs to be filled in.
Yeah.
And it just sounds like there's more to that story. Like there's got to be a bunch of stuff that he went through, the experiences he went through, because there's good and bad stories with back in those days, Pākehā integrating with Māori. Because like the bro Taika said, it wasn't always welcomed. Yeah. So I'd like to think it was welcomed. Up home, we welcomed a lot of the non-Māori back in the day.
And what the great thing, Corey, is on the Māori Whakairo Facebook page, and I've been putting up, Grandad's work. Man, the feedback I've been getting from Māori has been very uplifting. They recognise his incredible pukenga, and they just and I've told some of them my story of trying to find out where everything is, and they've been very supportive.
Yeah, so I've seen a couple of his pieces. I think they were his sculptures, a couple of the sculptures, and what the one thing that stood out to me, not that I'm any kind of tohunga whakairo, but one thing that did stand out to me was the likeness it was to Māori. And what I mean by that is, if you look back at some of the old artwork from from the early days, a lot of the paintings, they painted Māori with like pointy noses, and they looked European in some of the paintings. Some of the likeness was not the likeness of us with flat noses, big lips. So, but his sculpture was quite specifically. It looked like a Māori person, and
one of those sculptures that you've seen of the rangatira, we're in the korowai and we're in the tiki around his neck. Someone said to me, who was he sculpting? And that's a patai I just cannot answer.
Yeah, it's a mystery.
Yeah,
it's a mystery to be solved.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's a fantastic story, and I wish you well on that journey of finding those answers. I'd like to. I'm not saying I'm going to help, but I'd kind of like to just come along for the journey and just watch it all unfold. Yeah. But now, speaking of journeys, you've gone through a very interesting journey, as our watchers will have noticed that you speak a bit of te reo.
Aye, yeah.
Now, I'll just sort of start this conversation off by letting our viewers know that that Lindsay taught himself how to speak Māori from the comfort, from the safety of his own home.
Yeah.
Just using books and TV shows, not really having any having any interaction with Māori who could have helped him. So by the time I met Lindsay, I was absolutely shocked that you'd never spent any time with learning te reo through a Māori person, but you learned it all through books, etc. So give us your version of that.
Okay, so as you know, korua, kei te ako au I te reo Māori.
Tonu.
Yeah.
Wow.
I whakao hoho au. Whakao hoho. Inspired.
Okay.
You know that word?
Whakaohoho.
Yeah, it's a bit of, bit of a hard one.
Yeah,
a bit of a hard one.
Yep.
Whakao hoho au.
Yep.
By te Pākehā tānei guy on Espina.
Oh, right.
Or Reo Irarangi Aotearoa.
Yeah, so Guy and Espina on the radio.
Radio
was
New Zealand.
The person that
National
inspired you.
Yep. So I was sitting in bed having my cup of tea in the morning and always, remember Guy on, the usual, just saying a few words, and next thing, call Guy on Tōku Wingwa, and then he'd say a sentence, and then they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then he'd be having these korero with some kaumata on the radio or something like that, and it was, like I say, it was Māori Language Week, and I said to my wife, I'm going to learn to speak Māori. She said, what for? She said, what for? She said, what for? I said, because I want to. And then that night when I got home, I got on the Rorohiko, got on the Iparangi, and then I found...
On the computer, on the internet?
Yeah. And then when I got home and I found a program called Toko Reo by Māori Television.
Tōku Reo?
Yeah, there's 5 series. I started with the first series, and that's how I taught myself. I did enroll for level 1 at SIT. That's where I met you. And my life's been crap ever since. And
been corrected.
I'll be corrected there. No, it's been really good, eh? Anyway, you slip me that hundy later, mate. And but I didn't even finish level 1 because I was started working out of town. I couldn't get there, and so yeah, whānau, I've taught myself.
Yeah. And you even though you try to turn up to classes, in the end it doesn't really work with your lifestyle, I suppose. So, but the best thing to hear is that despite that, you would still carry on.
Yeah, and
yeah,
and it's not easy. It's really, really hard doing it on your own. But there were times here once when I didn't pick my books up for 6 months, and I said to my wife, "Oh, this is a waste of time. I'm just wasting my time. I have no one to talk to." Blah blah. She said, "Don't give up now. You don't realise how far you've come."
Yes, Leonie.
Yes.
And
she said, "Just stick with it," and so I did. Yep. And as you know, ka ore e whakamā about coming forward to anyone who looks Māori. I'm in for a bit of korero, mate.
So what he said there was that he's not shy in approaching anyone who's Māori to ask if perhaps they speak Māori.
Yeah. And because of that, I've had some really fantastic interaction. I think the first time was at the Queenstown airport. I was in there and went to pick someone up, and then I spied two wāhine having a bit of kai, and one of them had a moko kowai. Never seen moko kowai in Tahuna ever before.
Right.
I thought, oh, shit. So I went up, excuse me, ladies, and they looked up, yes, and I said, he tino rawa atu a tāhua to moko kowai. And this one was like, ah! And she I've got to give you a hug. And she came up, gave me a big hug, and then,
So your moko kowai is the absolute beautifulest. You've got to put that atahua in the middle of those bits, but anyway.
Oh, is it?
I'll put it down here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And anyway, and they, we had a little bit of a kōrero in Māori, and I've had lots of instances like that, because people always get a bit of a surprise to have an older Pākehā man come and talk to them.
Absolutely. Oh, you would have absolutely intimidated me back, like 10 years ago. If you'd done that to me, I would have been exactly one of those that you spoke about. So just a quick story here, whānau. Every time Lindsay would go travelling and he'd bump into a Māori anywhere, he would try and talk Māori to them, and then he would text me with the whole story of whether they could speak Māori, whether they were happy, whether they were angry, whether they were embarrassed. So, ka nui te mihi ki a koe i te kaha o tō kōrero atu ki ngā ngai Māori. So, I was just saying lots of regards to him for his for the strength in his want to just go up to Māori and speak to them. So because it isn't always welcoming.
Yeah,
a lot of Māori aren't happy with that kind of thing.
And sometimes I wonder, do they actually understand what I'm saying? Because I remember once I was pulled up at a gas station when I was on my way to Waitangi, and there were two Māori wahine behind the counter, and I spoke to them in my best te reo, and they just like, and I said it again, and then they still looked at me blankly, and I said,
And then they'd say, "Oh, we're from Tonga."
Well, did I ever tell you that story?
No.
The scaffolder come on the job, right?
Okay.
And like I say, I'm always up for have a bit of a crack at my te reo, and he was an olive skin fella, had all these sort of tribal tattoos on his arms. He was a big guy, and oh God, I'm going to pluck the courage up to go and talk to this fella. And I go up to him and say, and I can't remember what I said, but he looked at me blankly, and I said, and he said, "What?" I said it again, and he said, "What?" And I said, "Oh, aren't you a Māori?" He goes, "No, I'm from South Africa." Oh man, I feel like such a dick, eh?
Oh, one of those South African Māori, eh?
Yeah, had all the tribal tattoos on his arms, but oh mate, yeah.
No, that's good. I mean, were they Māori tribal tattoos?
Well, they had all those Māori designs,
Yeah, koru patterns.
Yeah.
If someone's got our tribal tattoos, I would want to speak Māori to them too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like you see, they eat the poms with them all the time, and it's like, yeah.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah.
So, and so you're continuing on your journey of learning te reo and speaking.
Oh yeah, Corey. Yeah, but like I said, it's hard, and it's come a time when I really need to go and be somewhere and just be immersed 24/7.
Yeah.
And I think it would really kick on then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have plans to do wānanga down here in Tāhuna in Queenstown. We're looking at doing rumaki wānanga for people who know the sentence patterns and structures. So the idea is to make it a rumaki session where you only speak te reo Māori for the whole entirety. Because there's a lot of people like yourself who have learned all the patterns and are really just wanting to practice now, but it's just so hard to find people to speak to.
Yeah.
I'll tell you two people that aren't hard to find to practice with. Me and Taika.
Ai.
Yeah.
Ai, tautoko.
Yeah.
So anytime you can always chat to us.
Yeah. And from starting on this te reo journey, that's what took me to Waitangi, which really changed my life and my outlook on te ao Māori.
Okay, so that's a good foray. Let's I'll let you explain that whole journey, how it came about, and So I was having dinner one day with this elderly Māori man,
And he said, have you ever been to Waitangi? I said, oh, yeah, I've been to Waitangi, but never been on Waitangi Day, you know, because, you know, there's always argy-bargy chucking dildos at the bloody MPs or a bit of cow shit or something like that, you know.
Oh, that was funny too.
Yeah. But they said, and he said, no, that's down at the bottom marae. He said, you go up to the top, it's totally different. He said, if you're going to go on this te reo journey, you should go to Waitangi. So that was on a Saturday night. On the Monday morning, I booked my airfare, booked accommodation up in Pākehā, and that was for the following year, 2020. And so away I went. And I went a week before Waitangi Day because I wanted to have a good look around and all that sort of stuff. And I was at the treaty grounds, and there was a hui going on with the Governor General and all that sort of stuff, you know. And I was on my way down, and I got down to the Kurawai where the big waka is, Ngā Toki Mata Whārua, which is the really big waka, and the smaller one beside it, Mātātou. Now, there was a young wahine there, and looked like she was doing something with the waka, and I started talking to her, and she said to me, do you want to paddle on the waka? And I said, what? You want to paddle on the waka? And I said, what? And she said, well, do you know where Haruru Falls is? I said, yeah. She said, well, you just drive up past there and you'll come across a rugby ground. There'll be all these tents and marquees set up. Just go in there and tell them you want to paddle on the waka. And then I walked out to the car park and I hopped in my car and I drove around to Haruru Falls. Now, I say to people, Pākehā people, if that was you, would you go? Well, no, I wouldn't go. But I did. I drove around and I drove in and there was some, karawa and kuia sitting under the veranda, and I went up and said,
old men, old women.
Yeah. And they said, oh, can we help you? And I said, oh, yeah, I've met this girl called Miri. And she said, if I want to paddle on the waka, come here. She said, oh, yeah, just go and see that fella over there and fill some forms out. So I went and saw this guy, and all he was wearing was a pair of black shorts and a tipari, and had to fill this form out. I guess it was for funding, you know. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what iwi are you from? I said, oh, mate, I'm not Māori, I'm Ngāti Pākehā, you know. And he had a laugh, and then I filled these forms out, and then he says, oh, where's all your stuff? I said, what stuff? He said, you know, your sleeping bag and your clothes and shit. He said, because if you're going to paddle on the waka, mate, you grab a mattress from out of that container, stick them on the tents, and we're going to feed you and look after you. And I was like, what? I just couldn't believe it. And I said, oh, I've got my stuff in Pai. He said, well, go and get it. And I tell you, mate, I was so excited. I maumahara koe, waia atu ai, ia koe.
Aye, yes.
You remember that call?
Yeah. So he just asked me if I remember him calling me at that time, and I do remember you calling because you were so excited about the whole thing.
Yeah. I was so excited, I just couldn't believe it. So when, you know, and I come back, and actually that day was when they were going to go and bring Ngā Toki, which is affectionately shortened down to Ngā Toki from Ngā Toki Mata Whārua, and they were going to launch Ngā Toki and bring the waka around to Haruru Falls, and then go back and get Mātātou and bring that around. You got any black shorts? Ngāti Queenstown. They also called me Ngāti Queenstown. And yeah, I got some. And I'll tell you what. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, mate, I never take my shirt off, eh? Yep. And mate, I'm as white as snow. No sunscreen. 4.5 hours. I was out in that blazing sun, mate. I got sunburnt like a cobra. And the funny thing is...
Or crayfish.
Yeah. And the funny thing is people were texting me from back home saying, oh, we saw you on TV. You were so sunburnt. And so a lot of the whānau from up Waitangi, they'll always remember me as that year I got really sunburnt.
Yeah.
And unbeknown to me, Corey... it was the 80th birthday of Ngā Toki, and it was also the 180th anniversary of the Treaty of Waitangi. And so it was quite a big deal. Yep. So iwi from all over the mutu were coming to Waitangi.
Tribes from all over the country.
So I had to learn haka, the Ngā Toki haka, waiata, the whole thing, and it was just an incredible experience to be welcomed in. To be part of it, and the night before Waitangi, we're still practicing, you know, paddle hoi moves. Yep. 10:30 at night, and this guy Robbie, who was a kaihotu of Ngā Toki, I went up.
Yep. The chief or the
the captain.
The captain
and I went up to him and said, oh, look, Robbie, I understand, you know, lots of bros have been coming from all over the country, and if I've got to get off Ngā Toki, you know, I understand. He goes, what? mate, you've got a seat on that cruise. Don't you want to be there? I said, mate, I'm just blown away by, what I've done so far is just outstanding. It's just amazed me at the experiences I would never have had. He said, well, you've got a seat tomorrow, bro. I said, oh, mate, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah. But so in the morning, when you're down at Haruru Falls, there's like 13 waka there. And, there's karakia, there's waiata going on, and because Ngā Toki's the biggest waka, and she's all got the, I don't know what the name is for the feathers out the front.
Nah, I don't either.
I don't either. And then the one trailing off the stern, which flows into the water. It's just a beautiful waka, and because it's the biggest, we're in front. So when we're paddling up towards Waitangi with that bridge that goes over the Waitangi river, mate, and you're doing all it's just get you in the nako,
Awesome.
Yeah, and then pull up and
nako or the heart.
Yeah, and they pull up in front of Titi Marae, all the waka, and another interesting thing. Because it was the 80th birthday, wahine have never go on the waka.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
But Joe Conrad, kia ora Joe, who is the you could call him the kai whakahaere of the waka, the waka camp. He decided no, wahine are going to be able to go on the waka, and so Ngā Toki pulled up beside the wharf, and a lot of female. Whanona, descendants, relatives.
Yeah, whanona.
Of people who who might have been kaihoi, or they might have been the original descendants of the original carvers of Ngā Toki. These kuia came onto the waka, and we paddled the waka round to Titi Marae, to the beach where they got off there. So that was, for me, that was a huge honour to be part of that as well.
Yeah.
And then after all that's gone, all the waka, there's a small island off Pākehā, which is Tapu, and all the waka paddled over to this island, and we all pulled up. And in 2020, every waka did their own haka, and one of the kaumatua gave the big story about why the island was tapu and all this sort of stuff, and it was very cool. I just want to add, there is a smaller waka called Te Whanau o Te Moana, and that's a woman's waka, and Midi Conrad, Joe's daughter, she is the kai hautu of that waka, and the woman paddle that waka.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so at the end of all the proceedings, I assume you would have had a Poroporoaki or something like that happened.
Yeah.
How did all that go?
The Poroporoaki, as you know, is the formal dinner on the last night, and there's a bit of formal speeches at the start, and then anyone can get up and do whatever they want. Whether they want to sing, spin a yarn, do a haka, poi, or whatever they want to do. And I always recall, if people think the All Blacks do a good haka, mate, that's shit compared to what I've seen up in Waitangi, mate.
Yeah.
I remember those boys from Tūhoe country. They did this haka, man. I was like,
seen some wicked haka from Tūhoe.
Yeah. And and then it was getting late in the night, and one of the other Pākehā guys who was here, he gets up, strips his shirt off, he's just in shorts, and he does this big mōrako thing, like this, and everyone's like,
it mate, it was just
demonstration, and it just blew everyone away, and I was like, Jesus. And then he sat down, and then I got up. And I stood up in this marquee full of people, and my te reo wasn't much then. Basically, it was just introducing myself, saying where I come from, all that sort of stuff, and then reverting back to English to what that meant to me as a Pākehā man, being accepted.
Yeah.
There, and I still couldn't get my head round it. There were some other Pākehā people and other non-Māori. I remember there was a might have been a Cambodian fella, and there's actually quite a few Dutch people, because the Dutch have got a very strong connection with Ngā Toki, because there was actually a Waka carved by Heck Busby and Co, and that Waka was taken to the Netherlands, and that's where that Waka is now.
Wow.
So there's a really strong connection with the Dutch. But anyway, so I'm up there having my little whakarero, you know, and I always recall it was getting towards the end, and I also rang you. I think I might have rang you the next day as well, because I always recall I never ummed or ahed, and I used my voice up and down, and I probably waved my arms around like an Italian a lot, you know. But anyway, I remember I had a shirt on, shorts, and my sandals, and I was about to say something, and I looked down at my feet. And I looked down, I took my sandals off, and I stood up, and I threw them down on the ground, and I said, and I'm looking at everyone's like,
and said, I bought these from the warehouse.
Yeah. No, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
But I said, I have never been so connected to Papa Tuanuku as I am now. And if every Pākehā could experience what I have this last week here at the Waka camp, Aotearoa would be a far better place.
Ooh.
I tell you what, I meant that.
I bet.
I meant that from the bottom of my nako.
Yeah.
And then I finished off with this, because the next day everyone was going to be leaving, to head off back to wherever they're going. And so I finished off with this whakatauki, and I'll recite it to you. Kia hora te moana. Kia whakapapa ponamu te moana. Kia tere te ka rohe rohe. Ko tau hoa harere. Ko te rangamarie. Now what that sort of translates to is, may the calm be widespread.
Yeah.
May the ocean be like greenstone. May a shimmer of light dance across your pathway, and may peace itself be your travelling opinion. Beautiful whakatauki, mate.
Beautiful. That's a good farewell. That's a good farewell whakatauki, that one.
Yeah, the great whakatauki.
Fantastic.
So now, ka haere au ki Waitangi, ia tau. Engari, ka wore e taia au hoki mai ai ki Waitangi I tēnei tau, I te mea COVID-19.
Yeah. So what Lindsay was just saying then is every year he goes up to Waitangi. However, he was not able to go up there recently because of COVID-19.
Yeah, aye. So ka kitea noa, koutou katoa, nā tangata a tāhua o te rupu nā toki matawhārua kai hoi Waka.
Yeah.
He pirangi au, hang on. After Waka, I should have said Aotearoa tau. I'll see all you beautiful people next year.
So you're saying he's going to see all the beautiful people up at Waitangi next year?
Yeah, he pirangi au tēnā, you know. So, so the whole experience at Waitangi and my journey in the te reo language is an ongoing thing. It's opened my eyes. For example, some Pākehā men who I might have held a lot of respect for once upon a time. You know, I might have said, a sentence, at work or something like, said a sentence in Māori, and the response I got shocked me. Don't speak that Maori shit to me. And I was like,
yeah.
It's
just unnecessary,
I was like, come on, mate. It's an official language of New Zealand. Get with the program. I'm not asking you to speak Māori, but just be accepting that.
Or just park your bigotry and keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Even if you don't agree with it, you don't have to say anything.
Oh, honestly, Corey, I've had some absolute vitriol that just shocks me. But on the other hand, I feel, for me personally, it's opened up doors to me.
Oh, for sure.
To a world that other people don't get to see.
No, and you never knew existed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you know, from my experiences in Waitangi, you know.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Wicked.
Some of the sort of funny old experiences I've had up there, like especially being a Pākehā man.
Okay.
You know, like I've had Auntie Bess who runs the kitchen. Her daughter's an expert weaver. Auntie Bess gave me this beautiful weaved hat, and another guy, Hoani, who's one of the kaihoi on Ngātoki, gave me a tīpari that I wore last time I was here. Next time I'll make my own tīpari,
Yep.
but to me they're my own taonga,
Yeah,
you
right.
know. And I just love the way how, even though a lot of those people have never seen me before, you know, they treat you with the utmost respect,
Absolutely.
which, you know, amazes. Well, no, it's not. It's part of the what they grow up.
It's surprising, you know, because
Yeah.
there's a stigma, or there's a perception of Māori being aggressive and angry about everything.
Yeah,
So,
and you know, they call me matua because you know the old, you know, that matua fire type
Yeah.
thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right down to little kids.
Yeah.
Everyone chips in to when they do the dishes. The little kids, adults, everyone's chipping in out the back, peeling the spuds. But one of the most amazing things, like last year, the last time I went, there were 3 kawe mate ceremonies,
Yep.
and all the manahiri on one side, and all us kaihoi Waka people on the other side. And before the manahiri come in, we're all there, and I thought, being a Pākehā guy, I better go to the back row, you know. And anyway, there was this young lad who was about 10 sitting in the front row, and then Auntie Bess comes along, gives this lad a clip round the ears and go, "Oi, you get to the back row, you should know better. Matua, come and sit here." And so I was like, Jesus, you know, I'm sitting in the front row of the, you know, I didn't know that, you know, the kids sit in the back and the adults are in the front, but still, you know, being a Pākehā man, sitting at the front of such a important ceremony, hui? What would you call it, a ceremony or hui? I'm not quite sure what the kupu would be.
Yeah, what, for a kawe mate?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's both. There is ceremonial elements
Yeah.
to it, but it's a hui at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, you know, things like that, you know, those small things for Pākehā guy like me, you know, mean a lot. Yeah.
Well, that's you know, he miharo rawa atu tō kōrero i tēnei wā. So it's just an absolutely amazing talk from you today, bro. So yeah, we're getting close to wrapping up now.
Yep.
But before we do, what I'd like to do is throw back to the bro Taika, and we can do the quick fire questions.
Kia ora whānau. So, yeah, like with all of our interviews, we have a set of questions that we ask all our interviewees. And the first one, to kick it off, is one piece of advice for your 21-year-old self. So if you could go back to your 21-year-old self and provide them one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, e kohi ana au I aku whakaro. Okay, first thing about advice, I would say that if you were going to do something sort of like maybe not quite so good socially, think to yourself, if I did this, would my mother be proud of me?
Oh, nice.
You know, I think that's a pretty good one.
It's very reflective.
Bring the old
man.
mum
Yeah.
mum card into it.
Yep.
You know.
Awesome.
Nice.
Next one we have is, what was your favourite age?
Or age would be ages. I really enjoyed my time when I was in the Forest Service and living in the bush, but really my favourite age was when I was in Queenstown, like 28 until I met Leonie. Well, not saying it turned to crap after that, but it probably got better. But, you know, I was single, met really good people who are my closest friends today. You know, kayaking, mountain biking, skiing, walking in the hills.
Yeah.
Just that was generally that period of time, 28 to 32 or whatever, 26 to 32. Fantastic time.
Cool.
It was a good life.
Awesome.
Favourite place in the world?
He nui ngā wāhi a tāhua I Aotearoa.
Yeah, lots of beautiful places
Yeah.
in New Zealand. Yeah.
But, like I said before, the Whakatipu rohi, ka muriwai, this is it, mate.
yeah. So
this is
Queenstown,
my-
Arrowtown region, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Te Waiponamu,
Yeah. Te Waipounamu.
awesome.
Yeah.
And of course up Te Tai Tokerau.
Right.
You're fun.
A close second.
Yeah.
No, totally agree. It's a beautiful place. It is missing a couple of things, but we'll be able to talk about that in another episode. So,
Yeah. My wife
anyway,
says
we'll just sit on
farmers.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One quote, mantra, wakatoki, or saying that you try and live by.
Well, another one of my favourite whakatokis, since I spend a lot of time in the mountains, is e hoki, ki o mauna, ki o awa, ki a puria ai koe, I ngā hauora o ta whirimatea. Return to your mountains, your rivers, so you can be cleansed by the winds of ta whirimatea. For those who don't know, ta whirimatea is the god of weather. I love that, especially when I'm up in the hills, getting the breeze going through my hair,
Yeah.
Looking
Yeah.
at, yeah.
That's an awesome whakatoki. That's one that means a lot to people like myself and Taika in particular.
Kia ora.
Because we're living away from our own takiwā or turanga waiwai, that whakatoki always rings in my ears. That
Yeah.
we have to never forget that when we're ready, we'll go home. We'll go home to our maunga.
Yeah, kia mau ki te tōkanga nui a noho.
Yeah. Ka pai.
Yeah.
But on a daily, we feel that wind trying to pull us back there,
Yeah.
back to our turanga waiwai. So, beautiful wakatoki. Totally agree with that.
Awesome.
Three people you could invite for dinner.
Three people?
Three people.
Only three? Yep.
Only three?
Good thought.
Yeah, okay, definitely my two grandfathers. Grandfather, the carver, for his journey into the te ao Māori.
Yeah.
And my grandfather on my father's side, after he came to New Zealand after the Boer War with the Australians, and coming to New Zealand, and he was just his life, And the third person is a guy called Arafata Bill O'Leary. Now, he was a swag man, a pack man. He was in the Skipper's Goldfields at one stage, but Arafata Bill got that name because he was the ferryman on the punt. They used to get people across the Arafata Awa down on Te Tai Potuni. He was also a prospector way up into the mountains of South Westland. So a lot of country that he went through, I've been in that country. So I would love to talk to him about his experiences.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So definitely not that American Sheila that you used to shack up with back in the day.
one of those American girls.
Yeah. Oh,
Apologies, Leonie. Apologies.
Yeah.
Cool. And last but not least, what does the future hold for you?
Well, the future for me, Korua, is that, obviously, I want to get better at speaking te reo Māori, and my goal in that way is to be able to, give a whaikorero one day where I don't have to think about it. It just rolls off my tongue. My grammar's perfect. But not only that, not only speaking te reo Māori, it's the other stuff, the tikanga stuff that, I really need to learn. Or to have the knowledge of. So whenever I'm around anyone Māori who has got something they can tell me, I just soak up the matauranga,
Cool.
And
we need to go through that exercise that we used to do, Taika, at the casino. So we every week we would practice mihi. So we'd set random hypothetical situations and get the person to do a mihi under that situation, so that you couldn't prepare too much in advance.
Yeah.
You were given a situation and had to mihi.
Yeah.
So and it just helps to practice in forms of forms of mihi, especially in whai kōrero.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all of it is relevant to whai
Yeah.
kōrero.
Yeah. And, you know, like, probably at this stage, I probably read and write a little bit better than what I speak. Because speaking, when I hear someone, they generally talk quite fast for me at this stage, and you can't really ask them to look. Can you just say one sentence at a time?
Yeah, you
before?
can.
Oh, you know.
You can. No. By today's standards, you can do that. It's not rude to ask someone to repeat.
Yeah.
Awesome kōrero, bro. So,
Yeah.
I think that's almost wraps us up, does it, bro? Any more questions?
No, that's pretty much up. And, you know, e mihi ana kia koe e tai, e te tangata rongonui o Waitangi. It sounds like you're a bit of a celebrity up
You
there.
are.
So
You are.
If I
Very
need a
famous.
ticket in, then I know who to come and see. I've never actually been to Waitangi myself, so I'll definitely make that journey one day. My Waitangi is up the Whanganui River. So,
Yeah. Yeah, me neither.
Anyway,
Me neither.
Yeah.
Anyway, e tai and e hika, hey, it's been a privilege and an honour to have you on the Chew to share your amazing story with us. And, you know, hey, best wishes for future endeavours, especially trying to ascertain more information around your grandfather and the mātauranga around those carvings. And I always believe that, hey, when you're ready, and it could be maybe when you're more fluent on your te reo journey, that maybe that mātauranga might come back to you.
Aye.
So I'm a firm believer in that. When you're ready, things will come back to you, and things will start. Doors will open, and things will happen.
Yeah. I agree. Kia ora.
Other than that, I usually hand it over to you, Ihika, to do any closing thoughts or wakatoki. But during that kōrero, I actually thought of a couple.
Awesome.
So if you don't mind me pinching your spotlight there, one of them actually
Cut a few, bro.
So one of them is actually mā te kimi ka kite, mā te kite ka mōhio, mā te mōhio ka mārama.
Ka mārama.
Which means seek and discover and know and become enlightened. So that's for you, E Tai, that's for you, Lindsay.
That's your journey right there.
Te reo Māori journey and ascertaining that whakairo mātauranga too. So,
cheers. Tēnā koe.
Other than that, hey, it's been an honour having you on. And to all our listeners out there, I hope you really enjoyed this. Subscribe at the bottom. Give us a like. Throw any comments in there that we can forward on to Matua over here. And tune in next time. Kia ora, mā te wā.
Mā te wā.
E noho rā.